Hi there and welcome. Here I'd like to present to you the new version of the basic overrig script, version 10.0. Let me show you the main functions of this new version. I'm going to start with bottom up. There's new tools. It's called Finger Tools. It's the tool, or rather a set of tools, for posing fingers, specifically fingers. Why is it needed? You see, when you're working with fingers, when you're working with finger controls, those are usually FK or forward kinematics. And in order to work with them efficiently and fast, especially for something complex like close-up shots, like animated features with close-up finger shots and so on and so forth, it takes a lot of time if you're using only FK controls. Or even when you are making animation for first-person character like hands holding a gun and so on and so forth. Finger animation is rather difficult since you have a lot of controls and you have to control them via FK. This toolset helps you to deal with these issues. Part of these tools can be used just directly. Let's say if you select controls, maybe you can create IK just for selected controls, but it's not all there is. It's not at this point, at this stage, not super efficient, it's not super comfortable. If you are working with finger posing constantly, it's not really convenient to select separately all the controls for all the fingers. So you can use these tools, but after a certain setup that will allow you to work faster. Because for some of these tools, you'll need a fourth point, like end joint, to work with it. That's why there is a specific pipeline or workflow to follow with this tool. First, we assign specific nodes to these controls, and then we start using these tools. Let me show you. At first, let's assign needed nodes for the fingers. Let's select all the controls. I'm gonna isolate the controls just not to see only the controls of the fingers. All right, at first, let's select the last controls for all the fingers. Let's add the locators. Next, we have set these locators to be on the fingertips, just somewhere approximately right here. Next, I'm going to do the same for the second hand. I'm gonna move it quickly just to show you, okay? It seems to be kind of tedious, but honestly, I'm going to show you how to optimize it and streamline it even further. All right, I've assigned these locators. Next, I'm going to start selecting the controls for the finger, for each finger, starting from the first one. And then, as the last object, I'm going to select the locator. Next, I'm going to press the pink assign button and do the same for this one, for this one, for this one. Again, selecting the controls, locator, clicking the assign button, the pink one, doing the same over here and over here. All right, next we're selecting the first controls for all the main fingers, excluding the thumb, and assigning the twist node. I'm going to do the same for the second controls, for the third controls, and it's not needed to be done for the locators. So essentially you do it only for the joints. Next, I'm going to select all the locators, locking the transforms and turning off the visibility. All right, that's it. Now the system is ready. Next, what you can do, you can select any joint, any control, and start working with these tools, with these modes. Let's say I'm going to use 4IK. So I selected it, it created this locator. Now I can move it, I can rotate it, I can pose it the way I see fit. And it's very kind of comfortable to work with. After that, let's say you created a pose, you click on the empty space just to deselect this object, or press this deselect button. Essentially it's going to bake this pose into the controls and remove the locator, as you can see. And that's it. As you can see, the pose has been baked. Okay, I pressed Ctrl Z. Next, what you can do further. What is important here, when you are assigning the system again, So let's say right here I've assigned this like controls and locators rather quickly. It was moderately fast, but when you need to do it constantly, maybe for different shots, for like different scenes, here let's say we press select all the objects. So that's going to select all the objects that's going to be a part of this system with nodes and so on and so forth. Next, I'm going to click the Generate Script button. I'm going to open the script editor next. Here, you'll see that it's going to lock the essentially script. You see it's called like script for assigning the twist nodes. I'm going to select everything that has been locked here and paste it into the script body, into the mail tab. And that's it. And now you can use this script in order to set up your character, I mean the same character with the same, of course, rig, the same joints, to assign this system quickly. Naturally, if you're working with references for your project, let's say when you're like importing the character, the rig, the character's rig into the scene, you can assign the system just one time in the rig file and then just via reference use it everywhere. But let's say for some reason you're working on a very complex project and maybe you do not have access to the rig, maybe you do not have access at all. Then of course you can't edit the rig and add this system there. So you can use the script to assign it quickly into the new, add it to the new scene and work with it there. Also, what else is important? These nodes that we are assigning and creating, they are over here. They are not impacting or affecting anything. They're not affecting performance. They're not affecting like any system or how the rig works, your existing rig works. They just exist. They are needed for this system to function, just to store necessary information. How to delete this system, by the way? We just press selecting all the objects and then pressing delete node button. And it's going to delete all the nodes for all the objects that you used before. Okay, assign it again. You see they are over here. There you see like they're virtually the same. And just to show you how it works, let me give you a specific example. You see there are two buttons, pink one and blue one, or green one. The first one, if we select the control, it's going to select all the controls that are used with pink nodes. If green, those are used with green or blue nodes. Thus, if let's say you're working, you can select all the controls with specific type, specific like system, pink or blue one. Next, bend tool. I'm gonna click it. It's gonna create this tool or gizmo. Here, it essentially affects all the three joints at the same time, and you can move it, offset it, rotate it, just to affect the entire finger, and it changes the shape or silhouette of the finger. Again, it affects all the joints, three joints at the same time. You can not only assign it to one specific finger, you can select several fingers at once. Let's do this really quickly. And it's going to create separate gizmos for each finger, and you can offset, edit them at the same time. Of course, sometimes the animation, the pose rather flips. I would say it's in some extreme cases, but overall for some finger extension or vice versa bending, it works quite well. What else is crucial here? You need to create this tool and then deselect it. So if you, let's say, if you start creating the gizmo for the first one, for the first finger, then for the second one, it's not going to work. Okay, I'm going to undo it. 3IK, based on the selected object, it's going to create IK, just simple IK, based on three joints. And then, based on that, you can work with it like with inverse kinematics. You can move it, you can position it where it's needed. Next, for IK, I'm going to select several fingers. It's going to create IK system based on 4 joints. So take into account the last locator. Yeah, you see, you can move them, rotate them at the same time, simultaneously. So it's very convenient. Yeah. There are a few controls also in the attribute editor. Yeah, you can add twists. I would say for fingers it's not necessary. And also there are some additional FK controls. Again, clicking on the empty space, it's recalculate, bakes, and that's it. Next tool is rotate tool. It allows you to rotate each finger joint independently from other joints for the same finger. I'm going to apply it, and you'll see that there are locators that I can now change. Yes, you can set a very specific pose to the finger, or rather pose the finger in a very specific and deliberate way. And next, and again, clicking on empty space, we are applying or baking these changes. I'm going to turn off the selection of the geometry. And the next tool, it's called twist finger. What it does, let's say if I select control, any control, of course if they have this blue type of nodes, and they're gonna create this locator, and this locator is gonna essentially rotate all the 4 joints. I can do the same for these 2, for example. Yeah, you see, they work. Essentially, it works for the entire row of controls. It is especially comfortable and useful for creating these poses when character holds something. Maybe let's try creating some working example. Let's say I want the character to take this cup. First, let's reset all the fingers. I'm going to select these controls first. Then I'm going to select the entire system. I'm going to set it to 0. Okay. Awesome. Let's move the cup. Oops. Yeah. All right. Let's say the cup is going to be somewhere around here. Let's isolate the necessary controls, just the necessary controls. Awesome. Now these guys are isolated. Next, let's pose the fingers, the hands. Let's say the thumb is going to be somewhere around here. The next one is index finger. Maybe let's use 4IK. You can already see that how actually fast you can work with the system, especially comparing to FK. Because imagine you'll need to create this pose in FK only using FK controls. Of course, in this specific example, it's not super difficult to pose fingers for this pose. But even for this task, only using FK is going to be horrendous. It's going to be very difficult to do, just it will take a lot of time. Because in this case, let's say if you move a wrist slightly, you'll need to control animate the FK as well. So it takes some time just constantly moving FK controls. Okay, maybe rotate it like this. All right, that's nice. Let's do the same for the other hand. Let's say we're going to use rotate over here. Awesome. No, I think that's too much. I would say the skinning here is not ideal, it's not perfect, but all right. It's good enough. Yeah, let's assume the character holds the cup in this manner. Okay, that's as well awesome. And this one maybe is going to be over here. I don't know. Maybe this way. Yeah, let's leave it like this. And additionally, let's assume that we do not like the wrist position. I'm going to select the wrist control, finger controls. Since in this case the pinky finger is not touching the cup, I'm applying IK, but we're not moving IKs, we're just moving the wrist. And you see that since we're using IK or temporary IK on these fingers, the fingers remain in place, but we just offset the wrist position. Of course, we want to keep all the fingers on the cup, and imagine if we're gonna do it with the FK, it's really horrible. Here, in this case, let's say for this hand, I can use pivot tools from the basic over X script, and just rotate everything at the same time, just creating pivot in between these two objects. Yes, something like this. Yeah. Yeah, imagine I would be doing it with forward kinematics. It's taxing, to say the least. Let's apply 4IK over here. Maybe change the finger a bit. Yeah, something like this. Fast, easy, convenient. Where this tool can be used as well. Imagine it can, fortunately, it can not only be used for fingers. The brightest example is the place where you have FK in general, not only for fingers, but where you need IK in some cases. Because, for some animations, for some poses, you just need to use IK. Because imagine, let's say, yeah, you have this arm, maybe you start rotating it, but then you want to keep maybe the elbow bent or something like this. Then you rotate it to like here. Of course, you need to constantly rotate the camera just to check the pose. Maybe if you use FK, there is high chance that you'll mess up something. Of course, it's going to be far easier if you select these controls. By the way, you can also assign the same note with the fingers. And let's say I'm going to use 3IK. And you just start using it as IK, just regular IK system, pausing it. It remains its rather natural position, comparatively speaking, if you compare it with the FK system. Yep, yeah, something like this. Fast and easy. Next new tool added to the new version of Basic over X script. It's Simple Physics. As you can imagine, it creates simple dynamics based on joints. Let's say we're going to take this girl as an example. I'm going to simulate her ponytail. Let's say we're going to start with this joint, but before that, let's do the following. I'm going to animate the upper joint, the first joint, just to avoid these intersections. Yeah, just initial pausing, just to make the ponytail behaving more naturally, just overall. Essentially, it's like creating key poses in a very simple way. Okay. Next, starting from this joint, we can select either the entire hierarchy. In this case, you can uncheck this option, since you have already selected the necessary joints. Or in case if you just have a joint and you know that all the joints in this hierarchy should be affected by the simulation, you select one joint, then check the option, and it's gonna select or rather apply the simulation dynamics to all the joints in the hierarchy. Pre-bake is not needed here, yet it's gonna, well, bake entire animation to joints. And then we leave the checkbox for create the dynamic chain and create it. It's gonna make this structure for us. For now, it doesn't work super well. We need to set it up. Let's create controls for necessary nucleus parameters. Nucleus is the system that calculates physics, collisions in Maya. We're gonna create controls for gravity control. Let's say this one. Yeah, this control is gonna control, well, the gravity and the direction of gravity. Maybe let's set gravity to maybe 600. Right here, damp is turned off. This one is turned off. Okay, let's see. All right, something is here. That's progress. I'm gonna create a second control. It's gonna be ground plane, since of course I expect that this tail is gonna be intersecting with the ground. Yeah, you see, it's gonna create such kind of plane which signifies the ground level essentially. Yeah, we can move it up with a bit. Let's see. Yep. Yeah, you see it collides with the ground. Yeah, if we move it over here, of course it's gonna jump in the first frame since we have the collision intersection. But yeah, you get the point. You can animate it if necessary. You can angle it if needed. Okay, this let's reset all this. It should be on the ground level. By the way, this plane is infinite. Okay, what else do we have? We can create a wind control, just to add some wind simulation. But in this case, specifically, it's not super needed. And the one that is super important is time control. So control that is responsible for controlling time. And using this control, you can control the frame range from which the simulation starts working or where it stops working and the animation starts playing. And the second important property is time scale. So essentially you can slow down or speed up the simulation. Essentially it's some kind of multiplier for all the physics-based parameters that we have. So, but in the end, to put it simply, it just slows down or speeds up the simulation. Let's set time scale maybe to 0.8 and let's check out what's going to look like. Yeah, looks kind of nice. All right, next. Another tab. I think, yeah, it works fine. Let's hide it for now. We need to create collisions. There is a separate tab for this. Yeah, the tool for creating colliders. Maybe right here, makes sense. Just using the chest control. Let's create a box. It's gonna create control. It's gonna in the shape of box. So this box is parented to the control. You just need to adjust the scale and orientation just to overall match the silhouette of the torso or chest. Next, let's create one right here. It's going to be box as well. And for the butt, let's do the same. And I'm making it bigger, rather big intentionally, because I don't want the tail to intersecting with the body. After that, I'm going to select the created objects. And then we press make selected meshes colliders. It's going to turn these boxes into colliders with common settings. It's going to be found over here. And let's check. Yep. There are definitely some issues. Maybe we need to make this box wider, just to avoid, messy intersections. Maybe let's apply the same collider to the arm. We can use capsule collider for that. Nice, okay. Nice, it works. After we're done, let's press bake source and delete all the dynamics, all the system essentially. And next we have this baked simulation into animation. And we can just maybe adjust the animation the way you see fit. Maybe we can use spline system or using ribbon system. We're going to talk about it later. And let's maybe loop this animation. I'm going to create animation layer. The 0 key over here, copy it over here, maybe right or here. Yeah, it's going to be looped. Nice, nice. Of course, you can polish it a bit. Next, let's talk about settings for this tool. And the most important setting or option here is new nucleus. As I mentioned previously, nucleus essentially represents the entire physical-based simulation for the collisions and everything in Maya. It is dynamic solver, so it is responsible for gravity settings, damping settings, and so on and so forth. And each nucleus has its own settings. So it means let's say if you want to create a separate joint chain with maybe opposite gravity or something, or maybe inverted gravity, you need to use new nucleus. Let's check what it actually looks like in practice. Let's say I'm going to create a new dynamic system, dynamic chain over here. And I'm going to use new nucleus for the second one. All right. Awesome. Next, over here, I'm going to press this button, set nucleus. And maybe let's create the gravity control for our purposes, for the currently selected nucleus. I'm going to make it bigger. And maybe the direction is going to be like this. And maybe the gravity is going to be set to 1000. Next, I'm going to select the second nucleus. Again, set nucleus as current. So I'm selecting the current nucleus. Then I'm creating new gravity control, offset it over here. Let's say I'm going to make it face the opposite direction. And let's see what's going to look like. Yes, you can see that each joint chain has its own gravity, its own physics, and behaves in opposite ways. You see, when you're working with clothing, sometimes it's very convenient to work with just gravity direction instead of maybe trying to use an additional keys, pausing, and then applying physics to these pauses. Sometimes it's just far easier to animate the gravity. Yeah, you see they're starting to be rotated into each own direction. Let's say, let's create a new control for the wind. Let's say it's going to be placed over here. Wind speed is going to be set to 1000. Let's see. No, 1000 is a bit too much. Maybe 10. Let's try 10. Maybe a bit more. Okay. So it means you can create a wind and control the wind for each specific joint chain. You can animate these joint chains, or rather these wind properties or gravity properties separately. And again, it's rather convenient to work with. Thus, if you deselect nucleus, if you create new joint chain, it's gonna be attached to the current nucleus. So it means you can create several joint chains, so just joint sets, so to speak, skeletons, which are gonna work from one nucleus, based on one nucleus. Of course, for each nucleus you can create its own ground plane. Maybe this one is going to be over here. Of course, the ground plane also can be animated, all the properties can be animated, gravity controls can be animated, and everything can be animated. Yeah, you see how it works right now. Okay, let's get back to the joint chain settings. There is attached channel. Essentially, that's how much physics affects or rather works relative to the original joint. So let's say if it's rather convenient tool to maybe connect some joints together or like connect some parts together. Let's say right here we're setting the key, set it to 0 and key selected. And I'm keying this property separately since these channels are specifically set as non-keyable. Thus I need to set keys manually. If you want to make them keyable, you can just select them, right click and just make keyable. Where was it? I do not remember. Make selected keyable, yeah. And now you can animate them the way you see fit. The next property is the point relative to which the entire system works. By default, it uses the first point. Next, there is an option both points, which is also actually quite convenient. It makes it so it sticks both points to the joint chain. If you deselect this checkbox extend the last, it's going to create a nucleus which going to be based on the last joint. Because in this case we assume that the last joint or end joint is also used, maybe it has some partial skinning for like some clothing or maybe cape or something similar. So it means essentially if you want to attach a joint with the last joint, you uncheck this option. And of course you can select the original joint chain and just start animating it. Yeah, it's gonna follow the simulation, the dynamics gonna follow the animation. And this joint is neat just to control the simulation, just to control whether both both joints are attached, just to control where these joints are moving. And let's say if we check the pre-bake option, it's gonna apply the control animation to the simulation. Again, it's mostly for convenient, just to work with animation more precisely, just to get more precise animation from controls, specifically precise posing. It's useful for things like tails, like dog tails or something similar, just to make them follow animation closer. Next, we have a few options for clothing, essentially like how the clothing behaves, its properties. You can play around with this easily. Also, we have another feature. Let's say you have this joint chain animated, and maybe you want it to work starting from specific frame. It may be like starting from here, I want to make it work. I'm gonna select the joint chain. Then you select the time range. And then you press the create dynamic chain. You can use pre-bake if you want to. And you see how it works now. It's gonna make it so this dynamics is gonna start working specifically from this frame and during this specified time range. Let's apply gravity, make it 1000. Maybe decrease the damping. Bam, bam. Yeah, you see, now it starts simulating. And what is interesting, when it's getting baked, let's say if I start, if I create time control, you see the start frame is set to this frame, which we used for the start of the simulation. Also, additionally, we have an animation for the attached channel, if we take a look at the graph editor. So it starts from this frame, it's set to 1 in this frame, and by the end of this range it's going to be set to 0. So of course you can edit this graph, maybe you can add more smooth transition, because right now of course it switches off rather abruptly. You see it gets back to the animated joint chain. Yeah, it still works with physics and then goes back to animation, to key animation. Yeah, so essentially it's a very convenient way to add physics in between your animation, just to turn off your animation temporarily. Just, not to override an entire animation, just to apply it in some range. Next, what is new? This button, ribbon. What it does, it bakes some kind of sequence of controls to ribbon system. You see, if I press it, it gives us this menu, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. The more controls you have, the more precise the movement you get. It always depends on how many controls you need, because sometimes you want to just offset the tip or something like that. You don't need 6 controls for that, you just need 1 or 2. So let's say in this 3 controls are enough. Okay, we rebaked it. We have all the same animation, the same part with the physics, but then in this situation you can change the offset, the movement, based on this ribbon system. It is especially useful when you need, let's say, when you have some kind of stretching object, maybe stretching a piece of clothing, or maybe some kind of chain, metal chain, tails, whatever, and you want to change them somehow. Maybe you can take this range, we can, using a layer and set same keys, then edit it somewhere over here, and so on. Next, what else do I have? I've added a new function, baking into layer. But again, this option requires for you the understanding how the physics works, what kind of physics we use, what kind of tools we're using for that. We can select the joint chain that we want to bake into the layer, select the time range, right click, bake to override min-max. So it's gonna bake either range or using the minimal or maximum frame. So we selected it. I'm gonna press this button. It's gonna delete all the connections. So essentially, we can delete the entire system. And what it's going to give us, at first we're going to have the alt animation up to the new time range that we selected previously. And we have the physically based simulation baked into the animation layer. The layer control is the same as with the animation layers, just with animating the weight. So we can smoothly transition to one animation layer from another. It gives you more ability to control the physics, just to add smooth transitions, control when you want to start it. Maybe you can change the weight just to make it work weaker or something like that. And it works not only for physics, but for all the other nodes that are created with this basic OverX script, with the overall system and pipeline. Another new tool that was created is a multiplier cross. Why is it needed? Let's say we have some kind of animation on some joint chain, and we want to transfer animation from one joint chain to another, let's say to the joint chain in our specific rig or something similar. What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna select the joints one by one. I'm gonna set it as a target. Then we select all the joints here and object. We can set options of rotation and translation. In this case, translation isn't specifically needed. We only need rotation. And then we press the across button. You see what's going to give us. Let's check it. This chain, or rather each element of this chain, so each joint, has been baked to each respective locator. But of course, only using rotations in this case, as you can see. And now we can do the following. Just add layers, set rotation to 0. And then we filter all the frames during the entire time range using the button from the basic over script. And you'll see that we get the same animation, but on the new John chain. It also works with the translations. Right now we're using only rotations. Of course, we can change the animation layer weight. Just maybe you want to get something in the middle. Maybe you can increase the intensity of this animation, decrease it. And the last thing, or other pack of things, are some small updates. There is new color scheme. This is the basic one. This is a new one, and this one is just a different one. Again, it's just based on requests from some users. That's it.